Welcome to Spiritual Psychology. My name is Renee McKenna, and I am a therapist and shamanic healer and also a parent. And I'm here today with Shawn Murphy, who's a spiritual consultant, also a parent and author of the 4-book series, Torn Between Two Worlds. And today we're continuing our series on spiritual parenting and talking about allowing obstacles to become opportunities. Welcome, Shawn.
It's great to be here today, Renee. Now, this is a
Oh,
very important topic. You know, we started this discussion about spiritual parenting, and my underlying reason for doing that is about helping young people today, helping young people to become resilient. And the best way to do that is through parenting. And this point today of allowing obstacles become opportunities is for me a really key point about how we can help our children become resilient. If you look at the generational changes, each generation has kind of changed the way they've dealt with their children. So I grew up in the baby boomer and the baby boomer phase, and my parents came from the Depression. And so all those parents didn't want their children to suffer that. They didn't want them to go hungry, right? So they made sure that that didn't happen to their children. Well, what did the baby boomers turn out to be? They didn't have the same value system as their earlier generation, because they were given everything in their childhood. Their parents gave them everything. And then we go on to Gen Z, and we've taken away, as society, taken away all the obstacles for children. And what we're seeing as a result of those children is those children aren't very resilient. You look at the old story of the little child helping a monarch butterfly out of its chrysalis. And if you help it out of its chrysalis, it will never fly, because it has to go through that birthing process to strengthen itself, to pump the blood into its wings so that it's strong enough to fly. And that's the key point for parents, is understanding that every time your child runs into an obstacle, it's an opportunity for them to gain resilience. And the first obstacle I see a lot of parents avoid for their children is their very first step of walking. If you've seen a child take his first step all by himself, they are so proud, right? But if their parents helped them to take that step, they've lost an opportunity for the child really experiencing success, something they did all by themselves. To go from crawling to walking, it's a huge obstacle for a child, having to be down low and now they can stand up. That's how early this starts in parenting, of making sure that we as parents, when our child runs into an obstacle, it's better to discuss with the child, how do you think you can get around that obstacle? What do you think you can do? How can you address it differently to get around it? And that all happens before they start to go to school. Those relationships of helping children to not avoid the obstacles, but actually to overcome them themselves.
Right. Yeah, I am reminded of this old adage that hard times create good men create good times create weak men create hard times, right? And there's a cycle. There's a cycle of that, and there's some interesting work. There's a book called The Fourth Turning, that looks at that generational cycle across history. It's quite fascinating, actually. And the reason I like these meta evolutionary perspectives is that they remove the angst, that this is actually part of the evolutionary process that we're going through as a species, really, that continues to evolve itself. And we have evolved quite a bit as a species. Slavery is illegal in, I think, pretty much every part of the world, and women have rights that they never had before. And certainly there's places where children are still forced to work, but there's been this real, we have international rules on how you treat your enemies, even if people don't adhere to them. Like, those are things that didn't exist before, right? So there is an evolution happening, and this cycle, I think, is a really important part of it, and we can recognize it and be able to even preempt or not have to create weak children that will create hard times, right? I think the idea of we hit an obstacle and then how do we overcome it? And I think my son loves to do rock climbing, particularly bouldering, which is when you rock climb without ropes, and climbing, stressing, really pushing yourself to the edge to be able to climb these really difficult tracks, or whatever they're called. It builds strength. And that's a thing, I think a lot of times we think that love is about comfort, and too much comfort makes us weak. If we lay on the couch all day and eat comfort food and watch our favorite TV shows, over time, my mother at the end of her life had difficulty even standing because she didn't use her legs very much because she had been bedridden, right? And so it weakened her, even the care for herself weakened her, actually to a dangerous point, right? So that, and as a weightlifter myself, I know if my mother had been doing more strength resisting, it actually makes your bones even stronger, right?
Oh, yes.
Right. So there's a counter intuition of that, of like, we are actually called into, there's a healthy space of resistance, of difficulty, that actually makes us stronger. Now there's too much where it becomes harmful.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's where, as parents, we have to regulate that. But to protect our children from difficulty actually stops them from growing the muscles and strengthening their bones to be able to withstand and overcome it, that it weakens them, that it's an unwise kind of a limited love that doesn't see the little bird needs to be thrown out of the nest so that it learns how to fly sometimes, or else it will become an inert bird, or whatever the right word would be, a squib.
Yes. I mean, that's the main message that I want to get across to parents is really think hard about, eliminating the obstacles in your child's life, wherever they are, and collaborate with your children to, help them strategize on how to overcome the obstacles that are there. And it can start really easy. You can do it anywhere, like in the kitchen. I know my daughter and my wife had done that. We let they look in the refrigerator and said, what can we eat? What can we make out of what's in the refrigerator? It's challenges the mind. It allows for problem solving instead of just saying, oh, here's your pizza. Well, make your own meal. See what you can make out of it.
Well, to even go back, very early in life, so things like stairs, which terrify parents.
Yeah.
Right. Because little children could fall down the stairs and get hurt. And so I was involved in some really big parenting groups, and it was fascinating to watch the different ways that people parented their children around stairs. So we can put barriers in front of stairs and keep the children safe from stairs. And there were children that even became afraid of stairs. because mommy was afraid of stairs. No, 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 I don't do stairs. We don't go down the stairs. Like, it was nervous for them to go down the stairs because they knew stairs were like that. And I had, my best friend was a co-parent. Our children, we have 4 kids and they're actually all the same ages. And we're both on the adventurous side. So really for us, it was about teaching the kids how to go down the stairs right away. As soon as they want to go down the stairs, let's learn how to go down the stairs. Turn on your belly, go down with your knees, and come down, like, do it the right way. And then it actually is easier for the parent in the long run when the kids don't want to fall down the stairs. And the child feels their accomplishment in being able to do this thing, and they like to go as fast. Some of them, they can even go like bum, 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 on their belly. They learn how to really navigate the stairs before they can walk. And there's a relief. I didn't need to be worried about my children around stairs for the most part because they knew how to do them. And once we got to the place where, like, they would always turn around and go down on their belly, and they got good at that. Now, there was a morning once my son was walking and my daughter was a crawler, and we gave him a tricycle. It was Christmas morning, and there was stairs that led down to the front door. And the very first thing, and the gate was open because the kids could do that. I actually just would shut the gate for my dog. And the very first thing he did, he got on the front seat, he rolled right over to the top of the stair. I know a hill I can go down. So we never actually got accomplished at riding bicycles downstairs, although there are people that do that. So there's always limitations, right, of that, like, too much. But to be able, I personally believe that our job as parents is to help our children to become independent of us. That's like the painful shadow of parenting, right? Is that we're training them to not need us anymore, which doesn't mean they don't love us, but we need to make ourselves irrelevant as parents. And which is hard sometimes, because then that's where our own work as parents comes in, is that there's a part of us that likes the dependence, that loves the attention, that loves that they need us, that feels really, really good, that love bond. But the need is not love.
No.
And
it's dependent.
And so to be able to teach our children how to do things themselves, and to teach them about danger, not that they need me to tell them what's danger, but that they learn, like, oh, this is dangerous. Children don't want to hurt themselves.
No.
Right. But allowing them a little, like we did stuff with the stove, like, hold your hands up, like, this is hot, like, this will hurt you. Right. They get it. They're like, there's a natural aversion to heights and heat and things like that. It's built into us as mammals, to teach them how to use knives to cut things in that are, like, appropriately sharp, so that they love to be able to do what we do. And they have a lot more capacity than we might give them credit for. I learned at the preschool that we went, the play-based preschool, that was a co-op, and I learned so much from the teachers about, like, oh, you can let a kid do that, like, oh yeah, and they love it. It was like, whoa, parent training.
Yeah. It's funny. I was talking about cooking, and you said, well, before that, we got to go up the stairs. Actually, I was talking about my daughter cooking before she could go up the stairs. She had a vegetable knife in her hand before she could walk. And she'd sit on the counter with her mother and help her cut vegetables. And they can learn very early to be respectful of things, especially the stove, as you said, the stove, the kitchen, very easily.
So a lot of it is, I think, for me as a parent, is being able to tolerate my own discomfort with my child's discomfort when they come up to obstacles. That's the selfish part for me. And that I see with a lot of people, is like, if life is difficult, and to go back to the resilience piece, they're going to be faced with challenges, and we can either help them build those muscles and that faith in themselves and in life, that if they fall and scrape their knee, it will heal. That if something bad happens, or something, there's a left turn, that there's another pathway, right? There's always a next thing that's going to happen, and that they can move through things, and what are the muscles they need to build to do that. Otherwise, we send them out into the world, to college or into jobs, and inadequately prepared to deal with the natural difficulties. They aren't going to get every job. Not everybody's going to want to date them. They aren't always going to get a prize when they show up to something every day. It's really important, but it's challenging to watch your child, because we're so connected with them, to watch them have a difficulty, and the desire is to fix it for them, I think, a lot of times, so that they don't have that suffering, not realizing that the wisdom that their own difficulty actually provides for them, and tolerating it ourselves, our own discomfort with living it through them. That's has been a lot of my work, is to like feel my own feelings and let them take that first step, even though I know they're going to fall on their butt. Yeah.
No, exactly. The thing that I would like to, tell prospective parents is put it in front of their eyes that you're doing this in order to avoid the time when your child comes to an insurmountable obstacle, which can lead to depression. It can lead to suicide.
Yes.
The suicide rate in the world today is enormous. It's crazy. And it's because these children don't have the resilience they need to overcome an obstacle that their parents didn't prepare them for.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's I'm going to give a little story. So a few years ago, my daughter had a bullying experience and was unfriended by all of her friends in one text at a fancy high school. And I'm loath to tell this, but I'm going to do it anyway, because I think we're past it. So it's her story, but I'll tell it. And she said, "Mom, I'm never going back to that school." And I said, "I don't blame you. If that happened to me in a work environment, I would quit." Like it was a really awful thing. And there's children that kill themselves over there. Absolutely. And my in-laws actually wanted her to stay at this school because it's a very fancy school. She could get into any college she wanted to from, she's academically smart. But, as a therapist myself, and particularly for a 16-year-old, their emotional and social development is actually probably more important even than their academic for certain children. And to take the whole child into account. And she might continue to get A's in school, but if she has to sit by herself at lunch, and if she's like kind of publicly shamed, which is what was happening, it would be horrible for her. She could go into a depression. So we pulled her out of the school, and she ended up going to live with her father at a public high school, which she didn't really like it very much. And I didn't like it because she was 75 miles away from me at that point. And then we had an opportunity. Well, it wasn't an opportunity. It was an idea. We took a trip to New York. And I thought, oh, we can move to Manhattan. She's always liked New York. She thought she wanted to go to college here. I said, "You want to move to Manhattan?" She was like, yeah. And so I sold all my stuff. I rented my house, and we moved to Manhattan 2 years ago for her to finish high school. And it's funny because the school, which is another kind of fancy school, because my in-laws are very into education, and I'm very grateful for that. It's wonderful. But we did get her into this really nice school, and it's been an excellent opportunity. She's about to graduate actually in a couple of weeks. And the school asked me, "How has your experience been at blah, blah, blah school, at their school?" They want to know. And I said, the school itself has been like meh, to be honest about it. But the whole experience for her, like, how has your child changed? The whole experience for her to have this really horrible experience, and to have the opportunity to be able to demonstrate for her that we can take lemons and make lemonade. That this girl who kind of was the ringleader of that whole thing, I said, we should thank her. Because we got to live in Manhattan. Like, that would have never, ever happened, because it was a huge upheaval. And it was this amazing opportunity for us to live together in this incredible city. We're in the Upper West Side. It's like the best neighborhood in the best city. It's like been ridiculously fun. We moved all the way across the country, and she got to see that there's unexpected answers that may come, and that we can make radical change in our life, even completely upheave your life, if it feels like the right thing to do to bring solution rather than just hunker. Now, there's times to hunker down and go through it, but it didn't feel like the right thing. And to be willing to maybe even change everything in your life that can bring a completely unexpected answer and opportunity where that obstacle created an opportunity that was, I would say, infinitely better than if she had just stayed in the place that she was on all these different levels.
Yeah, that's the tough decision to make for each of those obstacles, to decide what is the better outcome. And when you're talking about your daughter, it made me think of girls that my daughter grew up with. And, I always told their parents, it's your job as a parent, especially of a daughter, to make sure by the time she's 12 or 13, she's got to be very sure of herself. She has to be resilient, because in the world today, it's a dangerous space for young women. As you talked about the bullying, cyberbullying, but also, the rape statistics are horrible for young women. And it's very, very important that you work on this resilience of your daughters. Like I said, by the time they're 12, they need to be strong. And you're doing a disservice if you're removing obstacles from their way. It's important they know who they are.
Well, particularly for girls, I think it's imperative to have really honest age, and it may even feel age inappropriate, but age appropriate discussions about these realities in the world. And so I know for myself, that transition from girl into young woman, no one prepared me for that. No one prepared me for that. And it happens quick. I watched it. I was a Girl Scout leader, and these girls went from girls, flat-chested, to bodacious, luscious sex objects in a summer. Like, it was crazy. Like, from 7th to 8th grade, these girls totally developed. They look like young women, but they're still immature, completely unprepared to become sex objects in the world. And they're gorgeous, and they're little ripe flowers, right? I mean, there's lots of cultures in the world where they still actually marry them off at that age because they're beautiful and they're able to get pregnant, right? So and I was completely unprepared for that, to walk down the street and be whistled at and have people pull over and ask me if I need a ride, and whoa, after I wasn't a soccer girl, but I was a tomboy. It was and no one ever talked to me about it, ever. It was never mentioned to me that there was this completely radical shift. And I heard a podcast with this woman, beautiful Iranian woman, actually, doesn't matter, but and she was talking about that shift and how no one had prepared her for it, and how she moved from being a girl to being prey. Actually, she said, I was prey, and no one told me I was prey. And if I had known that I was prey, then, and that there were predators, not that everyone's a predator, but there are predators. And if I had known that, then I could have navigated when I was predated upon, if that's the right word. But I didn't, it was outside of my awareness, and she was sexually abused because she didn't know that you could do that. She didn't know why someone would do that to her. And that terminology, I use, my daughter and I have had many, many conversations about that, because my daughter's a beautiful, very beautiful young woman. And it's like to say to her, you're prey. And so she rides the subway by herself. She's had creepy guys sit next to her. And so you're a bunny, they're a wolf. Bunny needs to get away from the wolf. Doesn't mean you don't have to worry about being kind or polite or no, you don't be nice to the wolf. You get away from the wolf, because the wolf wants to eat you, right? No matter what they're doing. So
No, it's
That training, that counterintuitive training, particularly girls are taught to be nice to everybody, and we have to worry about other people's feelings. And predators particularly know that and take advantage of that social training to be nice and want everybody to like you. And that is one of the ingredients in many rapes of young women, is their inability to actually just escape, and to try to just be nice and not recognize that someone can really have harmful and devastating. Again, we don't want to be paranoid about the world, but to know there's predators out there. That was new information for me.
You said something very important that triggered a thought for me, and that is that society is teaching women to be nice to everybody. I think in what we're trying to do here in our discussions is to help parents teach their children to love themselves,
Yeah.
right? Mm-hmm. And to know who they are, and to be true to themselves. Because I had this discussion with a young woman recently who said, you know, we are taught to be like this with our parents, like this with our school friends, you know, like this with our boyfriends. We're schizophrenic. We're trying to be different people for different audiences. And that's a trip into disaster, as far as I'm concerned. You know, we need to know who we are and be true to who we are. And that's especially important for young women, especially important for them. Because if they don't know who they are, they can be easily dissed. They can be easily put out.
Mm-hmm.
If they know who they are, they can be put out and they say, well, okay, I'm still who I am. You didn't change me by telling me that I'm not who I am.
Well, it's complicated, particularly in that transformation from 10 to 18, because who girls are at 10 is different than who they are at 17. And that transition to include your sexual self and your whole self in that can be very, very confusing. And you get levels of power that you didn't have before. Doors will open and men will treat you differently. Women will treat you differently too. It's a whole thing to navigate who we are. I think it's a really important point. I want to counter with that it's really important to recognize who other people are and to trust that instinct within ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, I tell this story a lot because it was a really incredible moment. My daughter ended up having a day off of preschool, and we lived in San Francisco. We lived near the Muni. And I said, well, why don't we go downtown? And instead, because preschool was closed, we forgot. And so we jumped on the Muni and we went downtown, and we had this incredible experience. As we were leaving the train, this man came up to me, and he said, you know, I lost my wallet and I need to get back to Minneapolis, and I'm collecting money. You know, I need money for a bus ticket. And I knew he was lying, and he was walking with us as we were crossing the street, right? And I said, no, I'm not going to give you money. And I said to my daughter, do you know why I didn't give that man money? And she said, no, why? And I said, because he was lying to me, and I don't give people money who lie to me. He's trying to manipulate me, and so I don't want to give him my money. And then we sat down at an outdoor cafe, and we played a game for the first time. It just felt like a moment. And I asked her, we watched all the people walking by on the sidewalk, and I asked her, how does your tummy feel about these different people?
Yeah. And
she would say, my tummy feels good. My tummy feels bad. I like that lady. I don't like him. I like this one. I don't like that. So she was just trusting her own gut instinct. Again, something that was never, I was actually taught to ignore mine. And I told her, always trust that first. Trust what your tummy says about people. And then a man came up to the table, and he had like one huge dreadlock, like his hair was all matted together. And when he literally had like a sneaker and a shoe, and he was dirty, but he came to the table and he said, excuse me, but I'm really hungry and I live on the street. Would you be willing to give me some money? And I handed him $1. And I said, why do you think I gave him money? And she said, because he told you the truth. I said, yeah, he was respectful and he told me the truth. And then when we were leaving, there was a person, there's a lot of homeless in San Francisco, especially downtown. And there was a person on the street and he was yelling and throwing stuff around. He had a blanket and he was like, and I said, how do you feel? She said, oh, he's really scary, Mom. I said, let's cross the street. We can go far away. How far does it feel good to be away from him? She said, I want to go all the way over here. And so that's what we did. And I said, you can always do that when your tummy doesn't feel good. You don't have to be nice to him or worry about how he thinks. You take care of yourself first. And so I wish someone had done that for me, because I've had interactions with all those people at different times in my life. I've been lied to and missed it and not had opportunity. There's a lot of, so I feel really grateful for that opportunity to teach her that navigation of other people.
Yeah. And that goes hand in hand with helping them know who they are, and they're not looking for something from somebody else. Mm-hmm. If they know who they are, then they can know their feelings about that person, mm-hmm. and not be trying to get something from that person, which is how a lot of young people go around. They're looking for recognition, or they're looking for love from somebody else, instead of just having it within them, loving themselves and listening to themselves.
I mean, I think it's a human thing to want people to like us and to exchange love with people. We aren't self-generating in our love for ourselves. I mean, we need other people. We're social animals. I think that the over dependence on that at all, and to override my own instincts because I'm going to get that from someone else, I think that's where, when it becomes pathological. And rather than also recognizing what an obstacle is, recognizing other people's dysfunction. It's like at school, a lot of kids there's a lot of dysfunctional teachers and dysfunctional administrators out there. And so kids will have a bad teacher for sure. That will be part of their experience in school. They'll have a teacher who's just bad, however that is, right? And so, I mean, sometimes it's worth it to remove them. I removed a child from a school, not because the school was bad, it was a bad fit. But navigating difficult people is a part of being a human. We can't always get away from them. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I think this was a very important discussion, and help people think about how we treat our children when they run into obstacles, and help them to overcome it instead of trying to fix it ourselves. Men have Absolutely. That issue. Men really want to try to fix something, and we've got to resist that urge when it comes to children.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Let them have their own resilience building processes. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much, Shawn. Join us again for part 7 of our spiritual parenting conversation. Next time, we're going to talk about taking hold and letting go.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Shawn.
Bye-bye.